Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining me this evening. What I'd like to do in this video is simply perform a trade setup and go through the actual charting of a complete random share, which we haven't looked at before, and go through the process from start to finish until we're happy with what we call a current trade setup. So what I'm going to do for you is simply bring my cursor over to the top here. I'm going to select the S&P 100. Now, it doesn't matter which indice you want to select from or which sector or industry group that your individual stock lies in. I'm just going to simply show you the process which we go through to simply charting up a share and getting to a point in time where we're able to trade either bullishly or bearishly depending on what the actual chart is telling us. So what I'll simply do, I'll start at the top here with Apple, and I'm going to move down the list until we come across a share. I'm just going to add some additional time to my screen until we're happy with the share which likes to move, which hasn't been charted yet, and which we're happy to obviously do for you. So here we go. We're still going down the list. We're up to Boeing, BA, BAC, BAX, still going, looking. And I mean, it doesn't matter which type of share you want to trade. I'm just trying to find one without any lines on it at all. So here we go. This is a share right here, which I've found, and the ticker symbol is CSCO. The company name is Cisco Systems, and it's trading on the NASDAQ. So it's most likely a technology stock. What I'll do is just get some additional history, because at the moment our history is cutting off just past November 2012. So here we go. We've chosen a share upon which we want to chart. The first thing we want to do is start with our basic line drawing. I'll just put an LD here. Now this is simply just getting the support and resistance zones on the chart to help us obviously pinpoint areas on the chart where price seems to turn around, or at least choose a direction to move in moving into the future. So all I'm going to do, I'm going to come over here and just choose this button here. It's called the horizontal line, and I'm just going to graph the chart. So you can see up the top here, I've got 1 point up the top, and if I go down the bottom again, you can see these two lines right here. One in January 2009, another in July 2011. This simply just frames the actual chart and puts it into perspective for me. Then again, all you need to do is simply start from the bottom, or you can start from the top, and then you just want to connect at least 3 points on the chart where price seems to move, hit, and turn around. So as you can see, I'm circling in green here. These are obviously support levels, and this comes into the price point at $15. I'm simply going to repeat this process. As you can see, I'm going to keep moving these up, connecting lines along the way, which I'm happy with. And this is simply going to give us the framework which we need moving forward and into trading CSCO into the future. So here we go. Continuing on with this line drawing. Now, as you can see, again, I'm trying to explain this and do this quite quickly, but again, these touches are all coming in around certain price points. And again, what seems to work in the past obviously works in the present as well. So that's really the powerful sort of nature behind technical analysis, is that once you get it correct, it's going to last a very long time until you need to change things, if at all. So I'm just continuing on, and to really cut down on time, I can continue drawing lines all the way up. Let me just delete this, in the $26 vicinity. Let me just get my drawing tool. From the $26 vicinity all the way up to 34. But for the example's sake, and to cut down on time, here we are, and we're trading at $21.63. So all of this price action up here isn't really relevant at the moment, and especially not relevant here on the 20th of March 2014. So here's CSCO anyway. What I've done, I've zoomed in on the detail. We've got our line drawing analysis pretty well spot on. You can see all of these turning points, or what we call pivot points, and it just simply tells us, well, what's going to happen next when price runs into this pivot point. What we do next is simply change to a line chart again, and then we're just going to try and establish any trends which may be in effect on CSCO. Now, what we do when we try and define a trend anyways, we start at what we call a logical turning spot, and it's usually the last point or the final low which reverses a bear trend into at least a sideways moving market, or at least a bullish market. And as you can see, really that low came in here, which was July 2011. So all I'm going to simply do is try and extend this and come to a few touches along the trend line. And at the moment, there isn't really a good trend line on CSCO. Most of the time there are, especially in trending markets and trending shares. But for the most part, this is really a sideways moving stock. As you can see, really since October 2006, we've been in this range bound market, and we haven't really broken out and trended on CSCO. So that really breaks down the actual argument for any type of bullish trend. What I can see, however, is a little bit of a trend here. And what we're looking for are for 3 touches along the trend line. I'm going to switch to what we call a candlestick chart and zoom in a little bit and just see if we can line this up any better. And to be completely 100% honest with you, I don't really like this at all. Yes, technically we do have 3 points. We've got one here in July 2012, another in December 2013, and we're dancing all around this pivot point right now, the 20th of March 2014. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave it in here because it can definitely add to our analysis, although it's not it's not a very well established and trend which is in effect at the moment. It can certainly bounce from this area, but it's simply giving us some additional framework to trade from. So here we go, here's CSCO. We've got our initial line drawing done. We've got what could be a little bit of a bullish trend in effect. Let's just see if there's anything setting up bearishly that we need to be aware of. Let me just change back to a line chart. And really what we're working with is most likely really the data coming back to July 2013. So I'm simply going to bring up my trend line, and as you can see, there's no real trend line in effect. We've got a series of lower highs, which is interesting. That is typically a bearish trend, but it is not a well-established trend line. There are no 3 touches along the line, and as a result, it's not very reliable to be placing too much emphasis on that bearish trend line. So here's what we're working with at the moment. This is the basic technical picture. Now, what we do here at Pivot Point Trading is go through the 5 steps to trade confirmation. 1 is your line drawing. I'll put a 1 here. 2nd are your moving averages. 3 are your indicators. That's supposed to be an IND for indicators. We also have 4, which we call our candlesticks. And then 5, we have our chart pattern. So all of these things we need to satisfy, or at least address, before we set up and get into any particular trade, whether that's bullish or bearish. So just based off the basic trend analysis, I'm going to come over here and bring up this support and resistance tool. That's what it's named, but I like to use the support and resistance tool as actually triggers to get me in and get me out of trades. So what I'm going to do for you now is just simply go through a little bit of my own sort of price analysis, just looking at where the turning points are coming in on the stock and where we can set up a trade before we move into those steps of trade confirmation. So first of all, let me just explain myself. I've got this 2214 trigger here. It is above a resistance zone, and it's also above all of this overhead resistance, which has been in effect since March 2014. So straight away, if price moves above 2214, where is the next target? The next target is going to be up at this old resistance level, which is just above $23.07. That's the basic bullish trade setup at the moment. Let me just go and have a look at a potential bearish trade setup before we get into some additional sort of technical indicators and other things which can alert us to sentiment change, and obviously what price is due to do next. Now, at the moment, if we're looking at a bearish trade, we are technically sitting on this support level, or what could be a little bit of a trend line, so we could expect a bounce from here. So you need to ask yourself the question, if we break this trend line, where's our next support level? Where's our next target? And the answer is, if I duplicate this target, which is orange, it's going to be down here at $20.90. Now, what you should be saying to yourself is that's a very horrible risk-reward ratio. So what we simply do is just bring down the bearish trigger, and we'll move it down to somewhere about $20.62 with a $19.10 target. So that's a basic, what we call bidirectional trend setup or trade setup. It's supposed to say bidirectional. I've got this drawing tool, and it doesn't really work too well when you're trying to write. It's not too responsive, but that does say bidirectional. And all that really means is that we come to the market and we analyze the market as neutrally as possible. Until price confirms above or below trades, then we are completely neutral, and so is our analysis. So that's the basic trade setup. I'll get that into perspective a little bit more. What we'll do now is simply move into step 2 of trade confirmation, and that is the exponential moving averages. So we have to ask ourselves the question, what are the exponential moving averages telling us? Now, at the moment, they're crossing, but the bigger picture is, outside of those crosses, is that we're actually range bound. We're moving sideways. So there is no trend trade on CSCO, especially on the minor or even intermediate level. Potentially there is a primary bullish trend in effect, but for the most part, these signals are not really giving us too much information. Yes, the 22 is above the 50, which is good. And also our bearish trigger is below the 3 in the event that it breaks out bearish. So there's not a whole lot to take away from those. Let's have a look at our long term. Now, these are our long term simple moving averages. They're not exponentially weighted, they are simple. So it's an even weighting for a 100-day, which is in pink here. Then we also have the 200-day, which is in the sort of bluish color as well. And you can sort of see that the technical picture is starting to come together. Yes, we have a target here at $23.07, right at that 200, and our bullish entry is above the 100 and above resistance. So I do like this bullish entry and target. It's got 2 ticks right there. On the bearish side, this does technically support a bearish move because price is below both the 100 and the 200. So there's no qualms whatsoever about that $20.62 entry also. If we switch to our oscillating indicators, these are brilliant in a sideways moving market, and that's exactly what CSCO is definitely in. As you can see, we are oversold on the stochastics, so this is telling us that price may be wanting to move higher and it could be bouncing off this trend line. The RSI is very neutral, and the MACD is also very, very neutral. Although it is in negative territory, it's not enough to be excited about any bearish move until we break below $20.62. So again, these 2 triggers and targets are definitely lining up, and they are in agreement with the oversold nature of our oscillating indicators. What we can also do is flick to our 2 trending indicators, and that is exactly what these things do. They tell us when a share is going to break out and trend. And the most important one is definitely the CCI, that is the Commodity Channel Index. Now, at the moment, it's sitting here right at the neutral line. So we've got a 0 reading. The actual reading, pardon me, is negative 22.79, which is more or less in the middle when you consider that we get a buy signal above the 100 and we get a sell signal below the negative 100. So we are at a negative 20 more or less. So we're very, very neutral in the CCI. It's telling us that there is no trend to CSCO. The ADX is a little bit above the signal line, but again, it's just simply confirming the downward trajectory, but it's nothing to really get excited about. Let's move on to the Bollinger Bands and see what we can take away from the Bollinger Bands. Not a whole lot, to be honest. We are down at the bottom Bollinger Band. Generally, when we pull away from the bottom Bollinger Band, we do rally up and we do come into that top band. What is most likely going to happen on CSCO is that we're just going to simply trade sideways, and these are going to form what we call a Bollinger Band squeeze. This is when we get a period of low volatility. And then in days or weeks ahead, you get that sudden volatility outbreak, which is going to either move the share higher or lower very, very quickly. It's one of my favorite trades. I'll just show an example of a Bollinger Band squeeze. This is a Bollinger Band squeeze here in June and July 2013. You see how the bands get very, very tight. They constrict price. And then all of a sudden you get that breakout pop again. Let me go back in the past just so you can see this. Just moving back. Again, I haven't traded CSCO, but you can see a nice Bollinger Band squeeze here. This goes back to December 2010. Get that volatility break, and then we start to trend. This gap here is most likely earnings, so please disrespect that big bearish gap that you can see after that Bollinger Band squeeze. So let me just go back to the current day, and again, just walking and recapping the actual Bollinger Bands. There's not a whole lot to take away other than the fact that when we get down into the bottom of a Bollinger Band, okay, you get a bullish pop, all right? You get a bullish rally, and that's exactly what we sort of expect at the moment on CSCO. So as you can see, I started doing basic price analysis. What I did was I set the triggers based on the oscillations of the stock of different levels, using support and resistance, using that trend line, and then I went through the 5 steps to trade confirmation just to make sure that the triggers are in the right place. Generally, what happens is when you walk through the 5 steps, you'll get conflicting signals. You'll see like price might be on the 100 or 200 simple moving average, and that's when you need to go in and actually move your triggers higher or lower depending on what the actual technicals are telling you. So that's a really good walkthrough, for instance, on CSCO. Again, you can go out, you can screenshot this chart and then put it into your own trading framework. We did sort of move through the line drawing very, very quickly, but it is a very, very decent chart, and it is a share which likes to move as well, which is very good as a swing trade. All right, you want to find shares which like to oscillate very frequently, because that's what gives you the price swings to obviously set trades up and to benefit from the ensuing price move. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a comment, give it a thumbs up, share it with a friend who is interested in technical analysis, or even come through our free trading scholarship provided by Pivot Point Trading, which is going to teach you all of these basic foundations for successful and autonomous trading. So thanks a lot for listening, everyone. Enjoy your trading week, enjoy the next 3 days of trading, and have a great weekend. Goodbye.